I loved it. I wanted to buy, when I was in high school, I wanted to buy Apple computer stock. I had gotten a couple $1,000s in high school graduation money from relatives and friends, and I just wanted to sink it all in Apple. And had I done so, I would be a multimillionaire now. Had I left it, had the willpower to leave it untouched, I would now be a multimillionaire with regular dividends that would essentially set me up for life. And I would be plowing every penny back into buying more Apple stock. But my mom was super suspicious of the stock market. Didn't really want me to do it, and wouldn't let me sign up for one of those Merrill Lynch individual brokerage accounts that you can set up sometimes for kids. I blew a lot of the money. I wound up actually getting into college and hit 18 and was able to fill out paperwork myself and did some over time. I'm not I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not giving investments. The point is, I'm not a financial wizard. I now rely on other people largely to handle my investing for me because my bandwidth is related to 5 hours of talk radio a day. But I've paid attention to this over the years. I do some individual investments. I actually just liquidated my whole portfolio for reasons that I will get into, and paid off some debts. And while I am not a financial expert and I'm not a planner and don't take financial advice from me, I got to tell you, I think there's a bubble. I don't think there's a bubble. I know there's a bubble, and more people are starting to say there's a bubble, and I think it's not going to end well for us. And I think that there is so much, what did Alan Greenspan one time say, irrational exuberance. There's giddiness in the marketplace. This is a headline from Politico, clearly not healthy. Markets are giddy about reopening, and that's the problem. This is from Ben White in the Politico. Gas prices are climbing, home prices are surging, stock markets keep hitting fresh records as chat room driven mania draws in giddy investors. The economy and financial markets appear to be pricing themselves for perfection, betting on rapid vaccinations and a surge of consumer spending later this year that will pull the nation out of its pandemic funk. Serious risks are still lurking just beneath the surface. Vaccinations could take far longer than expected. New COVID strains could evade vaccines and spur new lockdowns. All of this could trigger falls in stock prices and other assets and stomp on job creation. But if the dream scenario does arrive, another risk is lurking. A burst of new spending and economic growth, coupled with the massive amount of fiscal stimulus in the system, possibly including nearly $2 trillion more under the White House's latest plan, could lead to a sharp spike in inflation that would send stocks tumbling and could force the U.S. Federal Reserve to contemplate raising interest rates to cool the economy. The Goldilocks scenario Wall Street and the White House are hoping for includes a successful vaccination effort and enough federal support to keep millions of suffering Americans afloat until then, followed by an economy that runs neither too hot nor too cold, but there is no guarantee Goldilocks will arrive. Markets are now telling two very different stories. For stocks, it is the best of times. While the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting yet another record on Wednesday as corporate profits come in fairly strong. Big stimulus remains likely and hopes remain for a strong economy. But the bond market is growing very worried that all of the stimulus and massive deficit spending could eventually bite the economy in the form of faster inflation. The yield on the 30-year Treasury bond climbed above 2% on Monday for the first time since the pandemic began, and the yield on the benchmark 10-year bond hit its highest point since the pandemic began. Interest rates pushed down by the Fed remain historically low, but should they begin to rise more quickly, they could eventually crimp consumers' ability to borrow and dent what are now red-hot housing markets in many parts of the country. Now, let me add another data point here. Twitter stock closed at a 7-year high as analysts cheered not profitability, but newfound swagger. Here's the subheadline at MarketWatch. Analysts seem generally relieved by the company's user growth commentary following its permanent ban of former President Donald Trump. How did it grow? Well, it didn't actually grow a whole lot. It grew 7%. 7% of its user base. Meanwhile, let me put this in perspective here. While everyone is so giddy about Twitter, Facebook grew 27% and Snapchat grew 62%, but Twitter grew 7%, and everyone is giddy about it having grown, even though President Trump has disappeared from it. And now there's Clubhouse. You should know what Clubhouse is. Clubhouse is apparently, you have this device. I'm holding mine up to the live stream camera. There's this device. This device is a little computer you hold in your hands. It's a communications device, and apparently there's not an app on there where you can actually have voice conversation. And so this company called Clubhouse, or this group has developed this social media Clubhouse. And with Clubhouse, you can get an access to it. They try to make it very exclusive. You have to know somebody who's in it to get access to the Clubhouse. I've gotten access to the Clubhouse, and you can have conversations with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Vera Wang and famous people. There are some who are incentivized to be there and others who come, and they're hoping to draw other people in with feelings of exclusivity, and you can overhear their conversation. Now, I went to Clubhouse last night, except it was bourbon and cigars and my buddy Philip on my front porch last night, where we had a conversation. But this is apparently the killer voice app for something called a phone, where you've already got a phone app. And Silicon Valley is in love with Clubhouse. And then you've got Mark Cuban coming out with an idea for a podcasting app where you can listen to someone doing a podcast in real time and make a phone call to them, like dialing 877-973-7425 and connecting to me here live. Wait, you mean so he's doing radio? Except as podcast. None of this makes sense. There is so much crazy money flying around right now. The stock market is going up. There's not a lot of wiggle room in the economy when it comes either side. You're almost walking up a mountain cliff with drop-offs on either side. And then you've got the moral hazard out there right now. You know, in 2008, 2009, with the financial collapse, the government went in and they propped up a lot of businesses that probably should have died. I can't tell you the number of friends of mine who work on Wall Street, who are in the financial sector, who do pay attention to this, who say this really is the number one issue for them. That the government in 2008, 2009 bailed out a lot of companies so that they would not go Lehman Brothers. And you fast forward to last year when the stock market cratered in February and the government stepped in to bail out everybody again, and they didn't decide who really should have the bailout or not. They just bailed out everyone. And so the government has now created this moral hazard where these businesses that should be left to die in the creative destruction of the free market keep continually, perpetually getting bailed out by a federal government. And so what do? They keep making bad investments. The government throws them a lifeline. And, you know, normally, if you feel like God has saved you from something, you feel like, all right, God's given me a fresh start. I'm going to correct the errors of my ways. I'm going to go a different direction. When the government is bailing out these businesses, they're not looking, all right, I can now extricate myself from the mess and go in a different direction. They're doubling down on the messes. Many of these people deserve to collapse. They're creating moral hazard. These businesses deserve to collapse. And now you've got the cryptocurrency bubble where a joke cryptocurrency called Doge is being skyrocketed by Elon Musk. Most people don't even understand what cryptocurrency is, and you throw in things like blockchain, and you got a bunch of little fringy libertarianish people say, oh, the blockchain, I know about the blockchain. Nobody else knows what the hell the blockchain is, but these people speak on it like it's some sort of gospel message and get you to throw your money in it. You don't even know what you're putting your money in. It's an algorithm. Everybody's controlled by an algorithm, which actually doesn't have a whole lot of value, and at any moment, the government could get involved and send things crashing, but Bitcoin's going to be $100,000. I think I'd rather find a way to get $100,000 than to get Bitcoin and try to convert it out. None of this makes any sense anymore. None of it. Twitter skyrocketing because investors like its swagger. There's no monetization in swagger. The market's skyrocketing because they think an 80-year-old geriatric in the White House surrounded by a bunch of communists is somehow going to stabilize the markets when he can't even challenge the teachers' unions in favor of scientists and open schools. We're in a bubble. we're in a bubble, and I actually have benefited from this bubble. About a year ago, I decided that people are going to go crazy for marijuana stocks because legalization is absolutely coming. It may come piecemeal, but it's coming. And I just sold, my portfolio skyrocketed hundreds of percent. I had one stock that was over 1,000% up from when I bought it. And I had others as well in technology that did very well. And I just decided, you know what? I've got some credit card debt I built up in the last couple of months. I paid off most everything. I've got some outstanding debts. I would rather get myself out of debt and free up my available monthly income to start putting back into savings and go on and take advantage of these gains now that we're into this year and not I can put off the tax payment until next year and go on and do this because this doesn't seem to me to be sustainable. And when you look at this massive spending package from Washington, the consensus of economists is that it's not going to spark inflation. But I think Larry Summers is onto something because it's not really disputable that the government is going to put more money into the economy than is needed to sustain it. Particularly as if they're dumping this much money into the economy, and this is kind of Summers' point, is every month moving forward over the next 7 months, if things go according to plan, we're going to need less of this money, but it's still going to be coming, and that's going to spark inflation. And he could be wrong. And I am undoubtedly going to lose out on some money. But I also want to sleep well at night. And I've amassed this, and it's a mid 5 figures that I pulled out that I didn't actually invest in. It just grew to that point. And this isn't me bragging. I really am not a financial wizard here. But I'm like me, an average guy with just a little bit of common sense who reads and kind of keeps up with the stocks, was able to build up a individual portfolio like that, not including my 401k and other stocks that are managed for me. And I'm like, this shouldn't actually be. I should not have been able to get this amount of growth in a year in the stock market. And yet I did. And other people are doing it as well. And either there's going to be a big cash out soon, or there's going to be something coming calamitous soon, it just seems like, and a whole lot of people are going to be in a very bad spot. And then you know what's going to happen. The government's going to want to bail them out. And again, more moral hazard, which just keeps perpetuating the cycle. The bubble, Twitter and Clubhouse, none of this makes sense. And I'm ready for some rationality. And the best way for me to have gotten rationality is to say, you know what, I'm going to go work on paying down my debts, growing this radio show, building something other than an app that is basically a group chat by voice, like a phone call to a party line, but all the hipsters and Silicon Valley people think it's the next great thing. Nope. I'll leave my Clubhouse on my front porch.
You can